Hello and welcome everyone. This is Blackadder at the RTS League channel, and today we are going to be witnesses to the first semifinals of our season 39 of Age of Empires 2, the Conquerors Clan League. The participants in these semifinals are actually slightly surprising because VIKs did have to actually overcome RFR, who have so far been pretty much one of the toppest clans that we have housed in our league. And well, on the other hand, VNs, they overcame NC, New Chapter, and that's a clan that has actually managed to gather some kind of banner in, like, I don't know, majority of the last seasons. So yeah, let's just see how the players are gonna approach this game with themselves being in the play. Okay, so the game has started, and the first match, the first map of this map is going to be preset on Decentring. For those of you who actually don't know what this map actually looks like, it's something like a nomad with all of the players starting on a bit of an island, really small island. You can see that there's just a bit of gold and stone, not really enough wood in here to stay in this place for too long, but otherwise you are also having a transport ship that is of course used for a bit of early scouting and then trying to find where they are going to arrive on the mainland. The mainland, of course, is having a lot of resources. You can see stone, gold, hunt, absolutely everything. You can see sheep, really a lot of resources overall. So there's pretty much no wrong spot to land with your armies and such, and especially villages in the early game. But that is usually coming into play a bit later, as in the meantime you need to gather a few resources, set up a town center, and get on with producing the villages to advance into the feudal age. Civilization picks are kinda interesting. You can see that actually VNs chose double Persians and Vikings. Really interesting choices, but since this is a nomad type map, that definitely makes sense to pick the Persians. They are pretty good for this. And otherwise for VIKs, we are seeing Chinese, Vikings, Mayans, which is a bit more usual lineup that you would be expecting, but really missing the Persians in here, replaced by possibly the Chinese, even though I kinda like Chinese because they are having, of course, a higher amount of villages at the very start, so he's going to be having a pretty nice bonus. You can already see he's having 6 villages, of course, as all the others are having just 4. And let's see if that's going to be something that will help his teammates and his team overall. So definitely different strategies, and that's definitely something that we like to see on maps like these. Alright then, scouting with the sheep, of course, as we are following Milo and such, but since this is really an open map and we are going to be interested in all the players, what they are doing, as already town center is being dropped by Winchester. We are going to be having a fog of war turn off so that we see what is happening all over. Red players so far not really having all kind of luck, or I don't know. Yeah, just going all the way around. Could have seen he was actually aiming for the right side, potentially hoping to drop a town center about here. But I'm thinking that in the end he actually didn't have enough room in here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe he did, but he just chose to go somewhere differently, a bit to the left, so that he's potentially closer to his ally Winchester in there, and yeah, didn't really want to risk anything, as if he had built it about here, to the right side, he would definitely be open to the aggression from his opponents, for example, by Heimdall, who is going to be his guy in there. We have also seen that actually Milo has advanced onto the mainland already, and that's the first one of them all, because you don't see anybody else advancing on the mainland, so that's Milo with Persians already being in, and he has basically fully abandoned his home base, and that's quite interesting in here, because on uh, the Wobbly version of the game, you actually cannot transport sheep, whereas on HD you can. That's a bit of a perk for that version, but in here that basically means that he will have to go back and drop. I'm thinking he's going to be dropping a mill, because that would be a whole lot of food that he would be missing in there, and he would be quite interested in supplying this to his economy. So quite different strategy right there, and we are also seeing at the top that red player is just about now going for a bit of scouting with the sheep as well. So let's see about that. I was kind of thinking that he might be wanting to actually go for the town center, second town center in there as well, but of course that's not really possible since we are in Dark Age still. That's definitely going to be sticking to a bit more standard setup in here. And so far, if I had to guess somebody to be a bit better off, it's definitely going to be VNs. because they are already set up on the land, and that will mean that he has a pretty good opportunity to somehow control all the resources on this part of the map, and that will also mean that his booms should be stronger than their opponents. But at the same time, since he didn't really get anything, as his TC placement was delayed quite a lot by transporting into the mainland, I'm kind of thinking that VNs are not going to be fighting for the water, and that will mean that VIKs will be having a whole lot of fishes. You can see that this sea is literally full of all of them, all types of fish you can find here. Some shorefish already being used on the left by the villagers, and that will mean that the strong economy boost in the early game from the water will definitely come into play for the Russian team. Well, we are seeing a bit of a pause, probably, as a lot of shore fishing is already going on by Heimdall as well. Of course, why not? Because the town centers are right next to the water, and shore fishing is of course the fastest in the game, so not really any reason to go for the deer first. They are just going to be next in line after the shorefish are off. Going for a bit of scouting housing. He's already seen quite a lot of the map actually, Milo, as he's scouting with the sheep in here, and why not? Because he doesn't need to worry about some of the players actually stealing the sheep from him. So he is quite fine in there. And he's even scouting on the right, seeing some extra sheep quite available for him, basically absolutely everywhere. And this should really allow him to do some pretty good scouting with them, and also then pretty good early economy from all the food that he's gonna get. Really liking this player so far from Milo. This definitely has a pretty good idea behind it, and it's definitely nice to see that the players have prepared for this map, both the VIKs and VNs. So far, villagers. Courage is at 11, but he was Chinese, so that's kind of understandable. Winchester is at 11, Warrior at 6, whereas Dark Knight 6 with Milo as well. Heimdall is at 9. So far the economy is quite stronger for VIKs, and for the fishing boats so far nothing, as obviously we don't have docks yet, but I'm fully expecting that they are going to be coming into play pretty soon. Bit of scouting going on, of course, by Dark Knight, who is trying to see what the opponents, or rather where the opponents are so far, as we are yet again moving into the game itself. And there's of course a bit of scouting also going on by Warrior, who has been able to capture at least a few sheep in there through the transport ship. Well, he's definitely going to see where is going to be the good position for his town center. I would be thinking that about here wouldn't really be how bad, especially with the hunt being right next to it. So this looks pretty promising as a TC position, for example, for a Warrior. And let's see if maybe there's going to be some kind of attempt to even delete the TC and then rebuild it on the mainland. Because there are some certain maps that we have seen in the previous tournaments, like War is Coming, the Nations Cup and such, where you actually is, rather, where the good strategy actually is to basically deplete resources on the little island, and then once you are done, you are just going to be deleting the TC, which will allow you to build the TC on the mainland, and that way you will transport in there without actually the need to advance it through Castle Age, which is of course going to be quite far off, as we are still at 9 minutes, and neither of the players is of course going to be having enough resources to advance into the next age. I'm just going to check if maybe I'm wrong. No, I'm not. So you can see Winchester right now advancing for the first docks from him, and we are probably going to be seeing the advance into docks quite soon from the other players as well. But so far it seems like that Winchester is the only one, but not really for long, as Heimdall is not far behind him, and that's one person against one Mayan with the docks. Kinda curious if actually Milo is going for dock as well. Not exactly sure what all the pauses are for. I'm just going to check into the game room to have a look what's up with that. Don't really see anything, so they are probably all in the game, so there shouldn't be any kind of problem. And since there is not any kind of chat from them, they are quite probably just taking their time for some other reasons, and we are already coming in. Okay, so these are just some little delays in there. Maybe you wanted to check on some kind of other games or something, not really sure. But yeah, Milo is exactly going for the dock, as you're guessing just a minute ago, which is slightly surprising to me, I would be thinking, because really this is kind of telling us that as opposed to what I was thinking a bit earlier, there might be a bit of a fight for the water from the ends, even though I don't really see how that could be all that viable, because, of course, that seems like a patrol, even though kind of weird one. Apparently those fishing boats are stopping the movement in here. But to finish with my thought, the economy advantage is quite strongly in 2 weeks, and I would be really thinking that if they advance faster, which they should be, right now they are at least going for loom, they will be owning the galley rushing quite easily, and I'm not exactly seeing how faster castle ages potentially from the ends could be overcoming that, or how could they actually be somehow useful against all this. So first feudal age from Winchester, which was a bit of a guess that was quite substantiated by the very good start by, well, I was going to say basically the best player in here, but I'm not all that sure, because even though Winchester is basically a pro lately, especially in 1v1, in team games Milo is definitely a pretty great player, and overall this season VNs, especially in the playoffs, have shown that they definitely have what it takes to fight on the top level, and being the defeaters of New Chapter, which is really one of the best team game clans, they definitely have secured a pretty good reputation for themselves for the remainder of the season. It's going to be waiting for Lumber Camp and other resources, as he's probably gonna be hoping that he can stay alive until Castle Age for the second TC and such. But we are seeing Docks, second from Courage, second coming up from Winchester as well, and we are seeing so far just one from Warrior, whereas the other players, second dog for the green player Dark Knight, and Milo is so far having one dog in here, and that's pretty much it. So he's content with one, and the last player we haven't looked at is the third dog for Heimdall. Let's see how that will work for them. Feudal Ages coming in from Heimdall, Dark Knight, and Courage. So I'm gonna switch into Winchester, who was the first to advance into the Feudal. He's gonna galley rush in, of course he is. And basically, since the water battles are all about proper timing, and basically the first one to advance is going to be having a pretty big advantage. Let's see if Winchester can somehow carry it with him and make his team win the water overall. Switching onto the land, of course, as everybody is right now doing. Courage, extra villages, already trying to will haul himself in, but he's going to be discovered by Milo potentially, but I'm not all that sure if actually Milo saw all of this. He probably didn't. And he's going in all kinds of interesting directions, so he might not even discover that Courage is already in there, which is kind of curious and definitely not good luck for the purple player. On the right side, green has landed, blue has landed as well, but these are just sheep, and he has landed his villages a bit more to the north. You can see that everybody is advancing on the mainland pretty much the same amount of villages. These are 5, or rather 5 for the green player. We have also seen that there are 4 so far for teal, as he's going to be gathering extra 5, and already yellow is having quite a lot of them because he has made extra trek with the transport boat. And let's check how's it gonna look for example, Red, who is just now, as basically the last of the players, advancing onto mainland, but he doesn't really need to worry about it all that much because yellow is the one who is attempting to apply pressure on the opponents, and so far, well, not really doing a great job of that, obviously, as he is quite far away from his own military buildings and is, on the other hand, quite close by to the opponent ones, and that means that he is not having the advantage of the numbers so far. Should be pretty easy to defend for green and blue, whereas at the bottom, teal is already joining into fun, and this is something that we have been expecting, because Milo is not going for the water at all, and that means that we weren't really wrong at the very early start, and he was just going for the dock to get some extra push for the water economy and to give him potentially faster advance into castle, I would be thinking, because he's right now at 23 villagers. There was a bit of fight, unfortunately, Winchester wasn't paying enough attention in there, and that means that villagers are at 24, 20, 27 for VNs, whereas for VIKs we are 30, 22, 29. So the economy is quite a lot stronger for VIK so far, and is definitely paying off quite nicely for them, the civilization choice and mainly the strategy choice for them. On the mainland, we are not really seeing all that much interesting stuff, just that the castle age is gonna be coming up, or maybe this is just for actually the attack. This is something you do with your boats, and yep, exactly, you have seen that the galleys are already having one extra attack, but same can be said about Heimdall, which means that Winchester, if he plays this correctly, should be quite easily winning the battles, but he should be a whole lot more careful, as this isn't going to work for him if he isn't This is another tricky part, actually, of this map, because you can see that the mines and all the woodline and such is quite close by to the shoreline, which means that if you are able to advance into Castle Age and get into war galleys, you are basically going to be able to stall your opponent's economy altogether, and that basically means that you are on a timer and you need to move your villages before your opponents advance into Castle Age, because then you will be having a pretty hard time getting onto the mainland and you will be in a pretty huge risk of actually getting shot down. Interesting stuff happening on the mainland. Askurch is trying to wall himself in quite fully, well, quite fully, working on it obviously, but quite interestingly, Milo has been able to sneak one villager to the back. We have seen her actually moving in there, and that's very important for him because he is going to be quite nicely hidden, as I'm fairly certain that Curtis has actually been absolutely no idea. Yeah, he doesn't know that something like that is happening in there, and he's of course gonna get pretty heavily hammered by Milo on his villages in there, and that's quite deadly for him because even though the loom is in place for the villagers, still the army is just going to be too strong pretty soon, and Teal has already lost 3 villages in here, already 4 actually, and he's definitely gonna lose a whole lot more, and he will need to retreat from this position and hope that somebody from his allies is gonna be able to help him. Yeah, this is absolutely not possible for him to defend. You should really be retreating with absolutely everything, especially with all the villages being kind of half dead. So it's going to be easy picking for the archer. And you can see that he has already been dropped to 32 villages, and since he was the one who was having the most, he was having 30 about, I don't know, like 5 minutes ago already, and he's still not really leaving that position. That definitely tells you that VN Milo is doing a pretty great job in keeping Kerch in check. Winchester on the water though is doing a pretty good job keeping in check his opponents, basically all of them, because you can see that Warrior is having just a few boats right next to his own base, whereas Winchester is the only one who is having some kind of a larger fleet, as Scourge is only trying to make sure that he isn't killed all that much on the land in here, as he is forced into a bit of a tower in here, and has been forced to retreat with the boats to help as well. Yeah, this is so well played by Mile. So well played, and you can see that he's already moving to the top as well. And since there's not going to be all that much of a defense, unfortunately for Milo, Winchester has been paying enough attention and has been able to build at least a tower for him. And we can also see that the Viking VIK warrior is gonna be having at least a few spearmen to help with the defense in here. So nicely played by Winchester, and even though Courage did pay for not having any kind of defense, it seems like that he at least served as a kind of alert for his allies who are right now knowing exactly what's coming onto their bases. This is looking like a pretty good engagement. 6+1, 6+1, so they are having pretty much equal numbers in here, so it's going to be literally up to how many boats each of the players has, and it will also mean that something like this micro is going to be deciding the battles in here overall. Otherwise, not really much happening in the middle, just Green basically biding his time, but he's already having a pretty huge army, and it's almost looking like that he wants to have 2 flanks, with one engaging fully into Winchester in here at the top, whereas the other one is gonna go for a bit of raiding and trying to kill the water economy, for example from Courage, who is attempting to do the same with the opponents. Another dog being attempted by Knight. As you can see that the Viking is quite nicely walling himself in, quite nicely finishing already, and that means that he is pretty much ready with the Spearman already being in place, and that means that there shouldn't be any kind of extra raiding being available for the purple player. Wheelbarrow for Heimdall, as Milo is still trying to make sure that this position on the map is going to be his, and I really think it would be a good idea from him if he vault about here and basically made sure that Courage is basically cut off from his opponents, or rather from his allies, as that would mean that the help will be very low incoming, and that would open an opportunity for Milo to basically kill him altogether. And without the extra player, yeah, well, good luck Winchester with Warrior actually winning that. Checking somewhere else on the map, we are seeing the markets overall coming up. As I would be expecting that will be actually basically a precursor for a bit of slinging. Castle Age coming from Milo as the first player, and that's yet again something that we expected a bit from him, because since he has advanced onto the mainland quite fast, we definitely expected that he would be having the best economy of them all, and it's so far definitely paying off. Yep, Courage just now trying to catch something off guard. This is definitely quite tricky for the blue player, who is slowly running out of place for all the houses in here, and well, he might not even get to finish all those goals. Oh man, come on. Come on, Courage. Do you see this? Oh yes, he does. Yes, he does. So he's gonna kill at least a few villages, or attempt to do so. And even though, of course, the building will have pretty brutal attack damage against all those guys, it will, of course, be a pretty good spot for the teal player to delay the economy of the opponent. So nicely played, and definitely a pretty big problem right now for VNs. On the left, Warrior with Winchester are doing a pretty good job defending against both blue and green. They are having pretty big armies, to be honest. So not exactly sure how Winchester with Warrior are allowing this to actually somehow not kill them. But we can see, oh man, so many skeletons in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 villagers in here dead just through the Radiant. So that's so nicely played. And you can also see a bit of dead villagers in here for the yellow player as well. On the mainland, Winchester is so far still keeping himself alive, but unfortunately there are not really all that many armies or other units left from Warrior. Not exactly sure where actually they are. Ah, they have died here to the Archer. And it's really looking like that Milo could be the deciding factor in this game, because so far he's really making, or rather, yeah, making life very difficult for the Berserkers, and it's very hard for them to establish themselves on the land. Some castle ages coming up as well from Courage, Dark Knight and Hamdol. Surprised at Courage's fast castle age, since he was quite heavily hammered on the economy in here at the bottom, as he's still right now being raided by knights finally. But with the extra towers coming up, it shouldn't be all that hard for the teal player to defend, especially with the barracks being dropped. And since he is Chinese, well, we are probably going to be waiting for him to advance into the castle, get the castle down, and then Chukonus coming up. And potentially even some extra camels against the knights, of course. Stables being ready, so it should be aiming double stables, so that's definitely going to be switching into camels. And well, unfortunately though, at the very top for VIKs, unfortunately for VIKs, fortunately for VNs, Milo is already quite prepared with some siege. Let's check what they are. And it's battering rams already, so he's basically waiting for the right moment. And oh my, without any kind of army in here, like literally any army. You can see there is not even any kind of flag on this building, so that's going to be quite deadly. Oh man, this could be a pretty nice game from Milo, and he is quite deservedly on the top score of this game so far, even though he is still slightly worse, not true anymore, than Winchester. Okay, on the water it's almost looking like that. Actually, Winchester is having an upper hand in here, trying to raid around together with Courage and his ally Warrior. And you can see that only army right now we are seeing on the water is Dark Knight, trying to get rid of the reinforcements, whereas the blue player is on the left. Yeah, kinda tough to see on the water in here, and having a pretty decent fleet. So yep, it's basically down to the Vikings. The VIKs, not Vikings, Berserkers actually is their true name, to raid a bit on the economy, and otherwise they are going to be hoping that the land battle is going to be something that they will win. I'm not really all that sure about that, even though Borgali coming in for Heimdall and Botkinero should basically seal the deal on the water. We haven't seen all that many upgrades from other players, and well, with the knights in here, it's going to be all about the proper micro, because the towers needs to be shooting on the knights, and you can see the GGs are here, and this crucial play by Milo, the fast advance onto the land, that was the winning strategy in here. And even though Winchester played really well, he was having quite nice echo early on and was quite fast with everything. It's not going to be enough, and VN Milo's play is the one that wins the game. Nice strategy from Vikingos Nomadas, and they are inching into the win in the first game and into the overall lead. Nicely played, so let's check the achievements. Heimdall, well, no, definitely Milo was the MVP, most definitely. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Well, really, not much else to say about this map, just the better strategy choice, and that's exactly what is important on these unusual maps. How you prepare for them and what you choose to do. Best echo in the end, of course, as we expected. So, nicely played, GG.